Roland Garros 2007. This was Rafa's monstrous path to the title. Federer, Djokovic, Moya, Hewitt, these are all players that have been at some point world number one. Alfred Montañez, clay court specialist, always a good test for an early round, and Del Potro, slam winner and one of the most talented players of his generation. Question is, could this one be the most difficult path to a slam ever? Well, as you can see by the length of this video, clearly not. We're making the common mistake of judging players based on their best career performance instead of considering their form at that point in time. Djokovic, he was climbing the ATP ladder, ranked number 6, having won no slams and just one Masters 1000. Del Potro, 19-year-old young promised, and players like Moya or Hewitt were already past their prime. So, strong draw, but not so monstrous anymore, right? I hope you agree with me that before we embark on this journey, we need to come up with a fair and more objective estimation of what hard or easy means that prevents this kind of biases. So without further ado, let's get to it. Here we can see all the slams from the last 20 years ranked by their difficulty. If we start at the bottom, we have Rafa at USOpen 17, his path to the title. Lajovic, Daniel, Maya, Dolgopolov, Rublev, Del Potro and Anderson. Highest ranked player being Del Potro at 28th. So how is it possible that Nadal had an easy draw like this? And to understand that, we first need to dive into how Grand Slam draws are made. We start off with the 128 players, 16 of which enter through a qualifying tournament, 8 through wildcards at the discretion of the organizing slam, usually local players, young talents or players returning from injury, and the remaining 104 based on their ranking. Out of the 128, 32 are seeded based on their ranking. Well, except for Wimbledon, more on that later. This will guarantee the 32 seeds specific places along the draw so that they avoid each other until the final rounds. Unseeded players are randomly drawn to all the open spots. Seeds 1 and 2 are allocated to the top and bottom of the draw so they can only meet in the final. 3 and 4 are randomly placed at the end of the other two quarters. Seeds 5 to 8 will randomly take the ends of the remaining quarters. This guarantees that the top 8 players won't face each other until quarterfinals. Similar process is followed for seeds 9 to 15, so they're placed at the end of the 8ths of the draw, and again for seeds 16 to 32. I think you get it by now. Now that we've laid some foundations, let's go back to US Open 2017 and understand what happened. This was the ATP ranking at that point in time. From the top 11 players, Wawrinka, Djokovic, Nishikori and Raonic were out, all of them injured. Then, 48 hours before the tournament starts, and with the draw already released, Andy Murray pulls out. As you can imagine, a late withdrawal like this can greatly impact the course of the tournament. If we refer to the slam rules, in the event of any player seeded 1 to 4 withdrawing 48 hours prior to the tournament, his spot will be filled by the 5th seed, and the 5th by the 17th. Now, is that fair? Well, that's a point for controversy. The rules also state that only if 2 out of the top 8 seeded players withdraw, once the draw is already released, then the draw can be repeated. And so, Martin Sledge replaces Handy, and Sam Querrey fills Martin's spot, and most player seats are boosted. This will end up with Anderson winning this half of the draw. On the other half, we still have strong players like Federer or Thiem. However, they're beaten at an early stage by Del Potro. All in all, a combination of multiple factors like injuries, withdrawals, and the remaining favorite players beaten by underdogs resulted in the most favorable slam path ever. And this is not to take merit away from Rafa, as he had no influence on any of these events, and still he had to win all his 7 games. So, if something we can learn from this is that the path to a slam can greatly vary due to many factors that cannot be controlled and we can only attribute to random chance. To me, this sparks my curiosity. Could it be that Rafa was the luckiest out of the big 3? How do they compare to each other? Is any slam more difficult than the others? And of course, our initial question, what was the most challenging slam? So to answer any of these questions, we first need to define a way to rank slam difficulty, and that's what I've done for you. So let's dive into it. As you can imagine, throughout the years, there have been many changes in tennis evolving to its current state. This makes it really hard to compare different eras of the sport, so for the sake of this analysis, we will limit it to the period of 2000 until today. Now, there are many ways in which we can define how difficult or easy slam was. A simple way would be taking the ranking of the winner opponents, aggregate them with an average, a sum or a median, and come up with a score. However, this approach, although being simple and easy to interpret, is not quite precise. Here we have the latest world number 1 at year-end. Are we comfortable saying that defeating 2015 Djokovic would be as challenging as his 2018 version, being both world number 1? Another alternative, remember we spoke earlier about Wimbledon seeds. From 02 to 21, they've used their own formula to rank players in a way that favors on grass surface especially. Although this is more accurate, it is also a lot more work, so for the sake of simplicity, I'll be using ATP points. As you may know, these are the points awarded to players based on their performance in tournaments for the past 12 months. However, we cannot directly compare points from one year to another. For example, from 2000 to 2009, the points had a different scale, being almost half of what they are today. To mitigate this, we will normalize the yearly points to be on the same scale. Now, let's give it a spin. Normalized points don't tell us much, but what if we compare each player to the average level of a player on that round? Being a score of 1 means the average difficulty. So for example, Del Potro here was 1/3 of the average difficulty of what you would expect for a semi-final match. And finally, because we want to give more importance to the slam rounds as they progress, we will come up with this completely arbitrary weighted average, just so we penalize the early rounds and center back the average difficulty to be 1 once more. Alright, now that we got all the pieces together, let's answer those questions. Let's focus on the big 3. From a first glance, Rafa seems to have the hardest, but also the easiest slams. So let's see this data differently by aggregating it into a box plot. Here we can appreciate that Nadal had the greatest variability in difficulty, followed by Djokovic, while Federer's slams were more consistent. And to answer the question whether any of them was luckier, we can see that the median for all looks very similar. And in fact, if we take in a statistical test, we can confirm that indeed they all had a similar difficulty. Having each of these players dominated the tennis scene and won 20 slams, it is not surprising that after all, the random effects that influence the difficulty behind the slam path tends to be the same. So what about difficulty by slams? As we previously saw in USOpen 17, many players pulled out due to injury. Since the US Open is the last slam in the calendar, maybe this could be a recurrent effect that can impact the slam's difficulty. It could also be that, due to the slams being played on a different surface, lower ranked players that specialize in a specific surface have a greater chance to upset the favorites. Using the same visualization, we can tell that the differences are greater now. And if we look at the mediums, both Australian Open and Roland Garros seem to be more difficult. However, once again, these differences for such a small sample, they're not statistically significant, so I would refrain from making further conclusions. And if you were paying close attention at this point, you might have an idea of what the most difficult slam is, since I may have spoiled it in this plot. So here we are, back to our main plot, right at the bottom at US Open 2017, with 40% the difficulty of an average slam. Completing the bottom 3, we can find Sampra's Wimbledon from 2000, followed by Nadal's US Open 2019. Fast forward to the top now, and don't worry, I'll be sharing this plot in the description in case you wish to explore on your own. I think a good place to start would be at 1.4, the average difficulty. Here we can find Rafa's Roland Garros 2013 and 2008. At this level, as you can see, each path includes at least a seed 1 defeat and another top 5 amongst a bunch of other strong players. Second most difficult, we have Stan Wawrinka's French Open from 2015, beating local players Tsonga and Simon, upsetting Federer in straight sets, and to top it off, becoming the only player that year that managed to take a slam away from Djokovic in one of the most dominant seasons the ATP Tour has ever seen. And finally, right up here, almost doubling the average difficulty of a slam, Australian Open 2014. Once again, yes, Stan Wawrinka. This time beating a higher ranked Berdych, upsetting Djokovic once more, and beating Nadal in the finals. Not without controversy though, since Nadal played the final through a back injury, which limited his performance, but still a win is a win. So, in an era of pure dominance of the big three, Stan was right there putting up a good fight. And after this video, who knows, you might even consider him as the greatest slam winner of this century. So, what do you think of these outcomes? Let me know in the comments. If you like this mix of tennis history and analytics, consider subscribing so you don't miss any videos. Thank you all for watching and see you soon.